The calendar might have just flipped over to 2025, but for the folks in Apple's Cupertino Space Donut headquarters, it still seems to be 2015. Don't believe me? Allow me to explain. While the iPhone still dominates sales in the smartphone sector, and Apple Silicon has elevated Apple's computers beyond the competition, I'd argue that in between those two flagship products, you can start to see the cracks, and they're getting bigger. One of the hallmarks of Apple products is that the great ones have always anticipated need. That was Steve Jobs' gift. He could see a future with a product that didn't exist yet in a category that wasn't even a thought for most people, and know it would change people's lives, even if people laughed at him beforehand and thought there was no way that this would happen. The iMac, the iPad, the iPhone, the iPod, they were all just paradigm-shifting devices. They changed the way we interacted with technology and expanded the possibilities of those technologies. But before Steve Jobs and the folks at Apple made them reality, nobody really thought that those things would or could exist. But since 2015, Apple hasn't done much in the way of innovating. In 2013, Phil Schiller, in his famous introduction to the Trash Can Mac Pro, said, "Can't innovate my ass." And perhaps he was predicting the future, because that product went on to be an abject failure, even though it was really cool looking. And I like it for that reason alone. But since Steve Jobs died in 2011, Apple hasn't done much to change any paradigm in the tech sector. They haven't impacted people's lives in the way that Apple did before. To be painfully honest, Apple hasn't done anything innovative in a long time, and what they've tried to do has been an abject, utter failure. To prove the point, let's look at the timeline of new or significantly updated Apple products from 2015 all the way up through today in early 2025. I'm only going to talk about the new and or significantly updated products, so this is not going to be a comprehensive list of everything that they put out. Starting in 2015, the iPhone 6S. Now, between the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6S, Apple sold about 400 million iPhones. I think it was about 225 million in 2014 and another 175 million in 2016. To contrast that, in 2003 to 2005, Nokia, who was on top of the game at that point, sold around 500 million of their little Nokia brick phones. 10 years later, Nokia was pretty much out of the smartphone game. Other things that came out in 2015, iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil, and the Apple Watch was introduced. Moving on to 2016, the only real innovative product that came out, the only real new product that came out was the AirPods. I believe in 2016, the redesigned MacBooks came out as well with the butterfly keyboard and the Thunderbolt 3, etc., etc. And then in 2017, we had the iMac Pro, which was the first pro-focused device computer-wise that they put out in quite a while. And of course, the iPhone X was released in December of that year. 2018, we got the HomePod, which has been arguably a success, maybe. I don't know. 2019, AirPods Pro, Mac Pro, Pro Display XDR. So AirPods Pro, by and large, very, very good product. A nice bump forward for the AirPods. The Mac Pro 2019 and the Pro Display XDR, if you were to get the base model of each, that would be $12,000. And if you were to get the stand, you would have to add an extra $1,000. So $13,000 for the base model Mac Pro and the Pro Display XDR. Leave that where it lies, okay? 2020 was a big year for Apple in the sense that they brought out the M-series chips, which really were a huge leap forward for Macs, moving away from Intel chips. Something that wasn't as huge of a leap forward, the HomePod Mini, and of course, we got the AirPods Max. 2021, AirTags, the 24-inch iMac with the M-series chip, which looks cool, but in my estimation, is kind of a useless computer for anybody but the most basic user. We got the MagSafe battery pack, which set the world on fire with its sales numbers and its usefulness. And, of course, no one can forget the Apple polishing cloth. In 2022, we got the Studio display along with the Mac Studio. And while the Studio display at $1,600 for the basic model was probably a little bit more expensive than what people wanted to spend, it was a very good display. The display itself was pretty much the same as the one that came in the iMacs before it, but it also had what some people think are good speakers, but I don't. Really not very good camera, but it looked cool. The Studio display and the Mac Studio were kind of what people saw as the replacement for the iMac all-in-one that came before, one of my favorite computers. When you think about it, the Studio display at $1,600 and the Mac Studio at $199 for the base model, quite a bit more expensive than a comparable iMac, but, you know, that's Apple. And then, of course, the Apple Watch Ultra was released in 2022. In 2023, Apple released nothing. Nothing at all. Given the pandemic and all the different things that happened with supply chain, etc., maybe we can give them a pass on that. But they released nothing that year. But that was quickly remedied in 2024 in early February when Apple released the Vision Pro. The Vision Pro had been much ballyhooed by Apple as a new way to compute. It was going to be the next generation of, paradigm shifting, this, that, or the other thing. But it was going to cost $3,500 to start. And if you needed prescription lenses or anything like that, it was about $4,000 with tax. That's what I spent on mine, and I ended up returning it within the return window because there just wasn't enough with the Vision Pro to make me want to keep it. I would have to be a rich person and have thousands of disposable dollars if I wanted to keep the Vision Pro, because it really didn't offer anything in terms of shifting the paradigm of how I would live my everyday life. Vision Pro sort of stumbled its way through 2024 until around October. It was leaked that Apple had stopped producing Vision Pros, and they weren't going to make any more parts for them. I guess there are tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of them still in warehouses somewhere. Coming toward the end of the year, some murky predictions about the overall future of the Vision Pro were put out. So that is a pretty rapid fall from grace, if there ever was any grace with Vision Pro. The other sort of newish product that Apple released in 2024 was, of course, the M4 Mac Mini. It changed the shape. It was a very powerful machine. They upped the base RAM to 16 gigabytes, and it is, for all intents and purposes, a do-everything machine for most people. Apple did announce and start to release something else in 2024. It was in response, I guess, to the overall prevalence of AI and other smartphones, as well as, ChatGPT and other AI implementations. Apple came out with not their own AI, not artificial intelligence, but Apple Intelligence. And Apple Intelligence, as I talked about a little bit more in depth in a video that I did not too long ago, link down in the description, Apple Intelligence has been relatively useless at best and disastrous and annoying at worst. And I don't know which it's been more than the other. Apple Intelligence has not added any real functionality that improves the functionality of the iPhone. The best thing about it right now is that you can go into settings and turn it off. Maybe the jury is still out on Apple Intelligence, but if you go back and you look at those 10 years, what do we have that's new? We have AirPods, HomePod, the M Series Max, but I mean, that's not really a new product. AirTags, polishing cloth, MagSafe battery pack, Vision Pro. And I guess you could throw in the Apple Card and all the things that go along with Apple Pay, etc., etc. While many of those are good products and some of them are already failed products, they aren't products that have had the impact of the iPhone or the iPod or the iPad or so many other Apple products that came in the years before. Apple still makes good products, at least when it comes to their core products like the Mac and the iPhone. But for the first time in a long time, The iPhone 16 has been buggy from the start. I've had problems with dead portions of the screen, and the software has been very laggy at times. And of course, Apple Intelligence has been Apple Intelligence. And even now, nearing the halfway point of the iPhone 16 sort of product run before we get the iPhone 17, it still gives me issues pretty much every day. At this moment, the only place where Apple is thriving is with its computers, which are great and get better with each new iteration of the M series chip. But that's a bad sign for Apple, because while they started out as Apple computers, they're now just Apple, okay? The computer part, they dropped. To illustrate that point, I did some research and took a look at how much Apple's computer products accounted for Apple's total revenue. And in 2023, the last year that I could find the revenue numbers finalized and broken down in this way, Apple's computer sales accounted for 7.7% of their total revenue. Now, it was higher in 2022 as people were switching over to the M series chips from Intel chips, but it dropped by 20% in 2023. In fact, Apple's services like Apple TV Plus, Apple Music, cloud storage, etc., they have come closer each year to eclipsing Apple's hardware sales in terms of revenue. They may have already done that in 2024 or early here in 2025. They've pretty much been neck and neck with the physical products for the last year or so. Is Apple still the forward-looking company that saw the future before we could see it and made that future become reality with their devices? What's their next iPhone, iPod, iPad? 2024 showed us that the Vision Pro wasn't it. And if you look at the other products that they have innovated here in the past 10 years, they're all products that already existed, and Apple sort of spun them in a different way. The AirPods, while great, are still headphones. AirTags, while convenient with the way that they interact with your Apple ecosystem, are still just GPS trackers, which aren't new. And in 2025, looking forward to what people have predicted, we might see a new Mac Studio with the M series chips. We may see the iPhone 17 Air, a thinner iPhone. And Apple was lauded a couple of years ago for going away from thin to making the MacBooks bigger, to making the iPhones bigger, giving us more battery, better functionality, better cooling, etc. There may be a new HomePod Mini, and the silence was deafening. Maybe a smart home display, but when it comes to a smart home display, I mean, how long has Google and Amazon had a smart home display? How well have those done in the marketplace? Can Apple re-envision it to something that people will actually want to use? Or are we just going to stick iPads on the wall or use our Apple TVs or our phones like we have been? In all honesty, Apple's home app is kind of a disaster and needs a total rethinking, but that's something that should be down the line with Apple Intelligence out of the way and figured out, etc. Apple is falling behind itself, but still there's talk of a folding iPhone or a folding iPad or Mac, and then another iMac Pro. I mean, that would be great for me. I would love to have an iMac Pro with an M series chip in it, but this is just more retread. Apple has not blazed any new trail that anyone wanted to go down in quite a while. You could argue that the AirPods are the only product that fit that innovative definition, but even they have stagnated. Last year's new AirPods Max had no significant changes, only the addition of a USB-C port to placate the EU and a few new colors. Nothing else changed. And both the Lightning version of the AirPods Max that they still sell and the USB-C version that is supposedly brand new still sell for $549, which was a stretch in 2020, but downright laughable in 2025. I don't know what planet Apple is living on. Maybe the space donut has its own atmosphere that makes it planet delusional, but they have not done anything. Maybe it's that we're just far enough down the road from Apple's last real innovations that we can see that Apple has passed its peak. They still make good products, but they're done changing the world. That's the way it goes. Ask IBM. Ask BlackBerry. Ask Smith Corona. Now we have to look elsewhere for what is next in terms of how technology is going to really impact our lives. I mean, do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know down in the comments. I look forward to a boisterous discussion. If this was your first time here, thanks for stopping by. I hope you'll subscribe and come back again soon. If you've been here before, thanks so much for coming back. I'll see you again soon. Until the next time, I'm out.